You probably think you're in a bad mood right now because of like a thought you just had.
Right.
You think you're stressed out because of an email you just read, or
Yeah.
maybe you're exhausted because you just worked a really long week.
Yeah, that's the standard narrative.
Exactly. But what if your brain is actually short-circuiting because a loud truck drove by outside your window exactly 200 milliseconds ago?
Which is terrifying to think about.
It really is.
Uh-huh.
Like, what if your biological software is literally crashing because the mechanical pressure of the sound waves in the room has physically altered the cellular water inside your brain?
Mm.
And all of this happened, well before your conscious mind even registered the noise.
It completely upends the way we look at human autonomy. I mean, we are deeply conditioned to view ourselves as these fixed, solid objects.
Right, like we're in control.
Exactly. We think we are these impenetrable entities just kind of moving through a passive environment. But the biophysical reality, the hard data we're looking at in today's deep dive shows that we are highly, highly porous. We are constantly being modulated, rewritten, and reprogrammed by the physical frequencies of the world around us.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are jumping straight into the deep end today. We've got our hands on some incredibly fascinating, highly exclusive architectural, biophysical, and neurobiological documents.
And they are dense.
Oh, super dense. But we're stripping away the jargon today. We are looking at the raw mechanics of human existence. And the core theme tying all of this together is a concept that sources refer to as the human biogesial.
Biogesial.
Right, which is this portmanteau mashup of the French words for bio and software, so biosoftware. And our mission today is to figure out how you, listening right now, can actually take control of this software.
And to really understand how to operate your biogesial, we have to start with the foundational axiom that's laid out in these biophysical texts.
Which is?
Well, the axiom is that portability is not a spiritual quality. It is a strict physiological condition.
Okay, let's unpack that right away.
Uh-huh.
Because portability, we need to define that clearly. It is the anchor for literally every single thing we are going to discuss today.
Right. So portability, in the context of this research, is your ability to maintain your core self while you move through a really chaotic, contradictory world.
Okay.
The texts call this core self your resonance souche, or your base resonance.
Base resonance, got it.
Yeah, imagine it as your inner geometry. Portability is the ability to carry that geometry intact without it shattering when you step into a highly stressful environment.
Like a crowded subway or something.
Exactly. A crowded subway, a tense boardroom, maybe a chaotic family dinner.
I want to make sure we're completely grounding this in reality, though.
Yeah.
Because when you say base resonance or, inner geometry, that can sound a little bit like, I don't know, New Age mysticism.
Oh, for sure.
But the sources are explicitly pushing back against that, right?
Yeah.
Like very aggressively.
Absolutely. They are aggressively pushing back against the idea that inner peace or resilience is just a state of mind or a philosophical choice.
Right, it's not just good vibes.
No, not at all. They are arguing that portability relies on highly measurable, heavily researched physical pathways. Specifically, they name three: sound, sleep, and nutrition. If your acoustic environment is toxic, or if your cellular sleep cycles are fractured, or, if your biochemistry lacks the precise atomic materials it needs to run, your base resonance collapses.
You just lose it.
You lose it. You cannot simply meditate your way out of a physiological hardware failure.
That makes so much sense.
Uh-huh.
So before we dive into exactly how sound, sleep, and food rewrite this hardware, we should probably clarify what the biogesial actually is physically. Like, how should we be picturing our own bodies right now?
Well, the traditional biological view is that the human body is essentially a very complex chemical factory.
Hormones go in, enzymes go out.
Exactly. But these documents frame the human organism entirely differently. They describe the brain and body as a multispectral oscillatory interface.
Okay, multispectral oscillatory interface. Let's translate that. Meaning we are essentially what? Bioenergetic antennas.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like, we receive information across different spectrums, we process it, and then we emit a signal back out.
That's it, exactly. To oscillate just means to move back and forth at a regular speed.
It's like a heartbeat.
Right. Your heartbeat oscillates, your brain waves oscillate. Even the atomic structures inside your cells are in a constant state of vibration.
Wow.
So your biogesial is the aggregate software that runs on all these vibrating hardware components. And your base resonance, that resonance souche, is the fundamental frequency of your living system.
It's like your baseline tuning fork.
Precisely. It is what your body naturally wants to sound like when it is perfectly healthy completely unconstrained, and not currently fighting off environmental stress.
I kind of picture the struggle for portability like carrying a really delicate acoustic melody, like a beautiful cello solo, but you're playing it on your phone's tiny speaker.
Oh, I like that.
Right. And you were trying to carry that delicate tune while walking through a massive, screeching, totally chaotic subway station.
Yeah.
Like, you have the screeching wheels, the shouting crowds, the heavy machinery. How do you keep your little cello solo from getting completely drowned out by the noise of the trains?
That is a phenomenal analogy because it gets right to the actual physics of interference. If the subway noise is loud enough, the sound waves of the cello solo are physically masked and distorted.
You literally can't hear it anymore.
Right. And the sources state unequivocally that a biogeoseal that is saturated with parasitic sound frequencies or fragmented by poor sleep or fueled by imbalanced biochemistry simply cannot emit a coherent signal.
The noise of the subway overtakes the melody.
Exactly. Your portability is lost. Your biological software crashes. Or worse, it starts running a program dictated by the environment rather than your own base resonance.
Well, wait, if I'm listening to this right now, I might be feeling a little bit alarmed.
Sure.
Are you saying we are completely at the mercy of our environment? Because if every single siren outside my window and every bite of food I eat is literally rewriting my core software, that feels incredibly vulnerable.
It is vulnerable. The permeability is real, and the scientific literature they cite backs this up completely. But the empowering flip side, and the whole reason we are doing this deep dive today, is that this system is hackable.
Okay, good.
By understanding the exact mechanisms of these three physiological pathways, you can stop being a passive receiver of the world's noise. You can become the conscious operator of your own system.
I am more than ready to become the operator. So let's move to the first, and apparently the fastest, of the three pathways, which is sound.
Let's do it.
Now, if you ask most people what alters their biology the most, they'd probably say like food or maybe drugs and alcohol.
Right, the chemical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But these sources argue that sound is the ultimate rapid rewrite mechanism. Why is sound so uniquely powerful?
It all comes down to the sheer speed of acoustic programming in the human nervous system. Let's look at the neurophysiology here. They specifically cite some foundational neurology stuff from researchers like Ledoux back in the 90s.
Okay.
Sound reaches the amygdala, which is your brain's primary fear, emotion, and threat detection center, in less than 200 milliseconds.
Less than 200 milliseconds.
Yes, and it
Yep.
gets there via a direct subcortical route.
Let's pause and really look at that term. Subcortical route. That means the sound signal is taking a shortcut.
A massive shortcut.
It is literally bypassing the cortex, which is the thinking, logical, rational part of the brain. It's going straight to the panic button.
Precisely. The cortex takes time to process complex information. It has to ask, what is that sound? Is it a threat? Have I heard it before?
Right.
But evolution decided we couldn't wait for that analysis if, say, a predator snapped a twig behind us.
We'd be eaten by the time we figured it out.
Exactly. So there's a secondary, much faster neurological highway that goes directly from the ear to the thalamus and straight into the amygdala.
And it happens in a fifth of a second.
Yeah.
That means sound alters your emotional and physiological state before you were even consciously aware of what the sound actually is.
Yes, it completely bypasses your logical defenses. You don't have time to think, oh, that's just my phone vibrating with an email, or that's just a loud truck backing up.
Right. Your body just reacts.
Before those rational thoughts can even form, your heart rate has already spiked, your stress hormones like cortisol are flowing, your pupils have dilated, and your biogeochila has been rewritten.
That explains so much about daily life. Like, think about when your smartphone makes that really harsh, jarring notification sound when you're in a deep state of focus.
Oh, the worst.
You feel a physical jolt of irritation in your chest before you even look at the screen. Or why a hostile, passive-aggressive tone of voice from a coworker creates a defensive knot in your stomach before you've even parsed the meaning of the words they used.
Exactly.
Your software was rewritten by the acoustic pressure before your brain could decode the language.
It's pure physics interacting with biology, and the sources break down how we actually receive this acoustic programming into two distinct biophysical routes. The first is the one we are all taught in grade school, the cochlear route.
Right, so sound waves enter the ear canal, they hit the eardrum, and they vibrate those little bones in the middle ear.
Yeah.
But the sources focus really heavily on the structure of the inner ear, the cochlea. What's so special about it?
What's fascinating about the cochlea is its physical architecture. It is shaped like a logarithmic spiral. It looks a lot like a snail shell.
Okay, a spiral.
And this isn't just a random shape. It acts as a highly precise mechanical frequency analyzer.
How does a spiral analyze frequency, like physically?
Well, inside the cochlea is the basilar membrane. As the sound wave travels through the fluid of the cochlea, different frequencies cause different parts of this membrane to vibrate.
Oh, so it's physically mapped out.
Exactly. High-frequency sounds, like a whistle, cause vibrations at the very base of the spiral, right where the sound enters. But low-frequency, deep bass sounds travel all the way through the fluid and cause vibrations at the very apex, the deep center of the spiral.
Wow.
And then the mechanical pressure at those specific locations is converted into electrochemical signals that travel to the auditory cortex.
So your ear is literally unspooling the complex noise of the world and mapping it physically onto different real estate inside your skull.
Yeah, that's a great way to visualize it.
And since every individual has their own unique cochlear architecture, it means we all possess a slightly different baseline physical geometry for how we process the world's noise.
Exactly.
But then there's the second route for sound, which is where this gets completely mind-bending to me, the somatic route.
Yes, the somatic route. We tend to think we only hear with our ears. But bass frequencies, specifically those in the low range between 20 and 250 hertz, don't just hit the eardrum.
What do they do?
They vibrate your entire physical mass. They resonate through the skeletal system.
Because sound is just mechanical pressure moving through a medium, and bone is a much denser medium than air.
Exactly. These low frequencies vibrate the sternum in your chest, your pelvic floor, the bones of your skull, and even your highly dense visceral organs.
That is wild.
You aren't just hearing a heavy bass line. Your physical matter is being manipulated by it. This is why you feel the bass at an electronic music concert in your chest cavity long before you register it as a musical note.
Which brings us to a really fascinating term introduced in the text, phonancy.
Yes, phonancy.
It sounds a bit like magic, but they define it strictly as the biophysical modulation of reality via sound.
Right.
How exactly does a sound wave vibrating my sternum modulate my reality? I mean, structurally,
It comes down to a network in the body called the fascia.
the connective tissue.
Right, the fascia is a continuous web of connective tissue that wraps around every muscle, every bone, every nerve, and every organ in your body. It essentially holds you together.
Okay.
But fascia isn't just organic saran wrap. It actually possesses piezoelectric properties.
Okay, piezoelectric, let's break that down for the listener. So piezo comes from the Greek word for pressure or squeezing.
Correct.
So it means materials that generate an electrical charge when you squeeze or apply mechanical stress to them.
Precisely. Think of a barbecue lighter. When you click the trigger, a small hammer strikes a quartz crystal inside.
Right.
That mechanical strike generates a spark of electricity that lights the gas. Your fascia works very similarly.
Really?
Yeah. When these specific resonant sound frequencies hit your body, they act as a mechanical force. They rapidly compress and release the fascial tissues. Because of the piezoelectric effect, this mechanical squeezing generates microelectrical currents throughout your whole body.
Wait, so sound is acting like a microscopic hydrodynamic pump.
It is a literal pump. This acoustic pumping effect optimizes lymphatic drainage, which, relies on physical movement to flow.
Wow, okay.
It pushes metabolic toxins out of the cellular matrix and help oxygenate the cells. The sound waves are physically massaging the liquid environment of your body.
I originally thought of this like dropping a pebble into a still pond. The ripple changes the surface of the water. But honestly, that metaphor is way too weak.
Yeah, it doesn't go far enough.
Because the human body is roughly 70 to 77% water, especially the brain. So when sound hits us, it's not just making ripples on the surface. We need to think about cymatics.
Cymatics is the perfect scientific parallel here.
For those who haven't seen it, cymatics is the study of visible sound.
Right.
If you take a metal plate, cover it with a thin layer of water or sand, and run specific sound frequencies through the plate, the water will instantly organize itself into complex, incredibly precise geometric patterns.
It's beautiful to watch.
It is. And if you change the frequency, the geometry instantly morphs into a brand new pattern.
And since you are basically a walking, talking bag of heavily structured water, you are essentially a walking cymatic experiment.
That's crazy to think about.
The acoustic environment you place yourself in is actively dictating the physical geometry of your cellular water. When you listen to a specific piece of music, or conversely, when you are subjected to the harsh, chaotic noise of traffic, your internal fluid dynamics are physically shifting to match that exact frequency.
That is profound. But it also begs a huge question. If sound acts as this instantaneous input, this rapid, violent wrecking ball of a rewrite mechanism, how does the body ever recover?
It's a constant struggle.
Right, because how do we rebuild the geometry? You can't just keep blasting a cymatic plate with changing frequencies forever. The water needs a moment to settle and form a baseline. There has to be a designated repair cycle.
And that transition is exactly why the text moves to the second physiological pathway of portability, sleep and the consolidation of the biodigital.
Okay, this is where we look at the brainwave spectrum, or what the sources call the spectral signatures. Because if sound is the input, sleep is when we hit save on the document.
Exactly. The brain is a dynamic oscillatory field. Its electrical activity isn't just random static. It is highly organized into specific frequency bands or brainwaves.
And the texts detail 5 main spectral signatures, right?
Yes. To really master your portability, you have to understand what each of these frequencies is doing to your hardware.
Let's explore them, starting from the absolute bottom. The slowest, deepest waves. Delta.
Delta waves oscillate very slowly, ranging from 0.5 to 4 hertz.
And just to ground that, a hertz is 1 cycle per second. So a 4 hertz wave means the electrical current in your brain is pulsing up and down just 4 times every second. That is a slow, rolling, massive wave of electricity.
It is. These are the highest amplitude waves your brain produces. Delta is the signature of deep, dreamless sleep.
Okay.
When you are in delta, your conscious awareness is entirely offline. This is the frequency of raw cellular repair.
The heavy lifting.
Exactly. It is when molecular restoration happens, when the immune system recovers, and crucially, when the physical architecture of the brain cleans itself.
We are going to come back to delta in a moment because the sources argue it is the most vital state of all for portability. But let's move up the scale first. Above delta is theta, from 4 to 8 hertz.
Theta is a highly plastic state. It is the realm of REM sleep, vivid dreams, and deep meditative states.
The dream state.
Right. It is the frequency that allows the brain to access deep emotional structures and archetypal memories. During theta, the brain is actively consolidating memories, taking the raw data of the day and rewriting emotional responses to those events.
Next up is alpha, oscillating between 8 and 12 hertz. And the texts put a massive amount of emphasis on alpha. Why is this specific rhythm so important for our portability?
Alpha is the resting rhythm of the waking brain. When you close your eyes and take a deep breath, your brain starts producing alpha waves.
It's that relaxed feeling.
It is a state of calm, relaxed wakefulness. But more importantly, the sources describe alpha as a physiological lock, or a filter.
A lock against what?
Against sensory aggression. When your brain can produce a strong, stable alpha rhythm, it effectively raises a shield against the noise of the subway.
Oh, I see.
It filters out irrelevant environmental stimuli. A robust alpha rhythm protects your base resonance from being overwhelmed by the constant bombardment of the modern world.
But what happens when that shield drops? When we lose that alpha lock, we get pushed up into the next band, right? Beta, oscillating from 12 to 30 hertz.
Beta is the frequency of active cognition. It's what you and I are using right now to have this conversation.
Right.
Right. It's logical problem solving, social interaction, and focus. But beta has a dark side.
Which is?
In excess, or when it intrudes on periods when you should be resting, beta represents survival mode. It is the frequency of hypervigilance, chronic stress, and anxiety. It's the feeling of having way too many tabs open in your web browser.
I know that feeling perfectly. And finally, at the very top end of the spectrum, we have gamma, which is 30 to 100 hertz and beyond. These are incredibly fast, tiny waves.
Gamma is the cutting edge of neuroscience right now. It is associated with high-level sensory binding.
Sensory binding.
Yeah. Imagine you're eating an apple. Your brain has to process the red color, the crisp sound of the bite, the sweet taste, and the physical texture, all in completely different areas of the brain.
Right. They're all separate data points.
Gamma waves are what sweep across the brain and instantaneously synchronize all those different sensory inputs into a single cohesive perception of eating an apple.
Oh, wow.
It is the frequency of pure peak coherence.
Okay, so looking at this entire spectrum, it becomes clear that we need all of them at different times. We need beta to work, gamma to synthesize, theta to dream.
Absolutely.
But the texts keep circling back to the bottom. They argue that maintaining your biodigital completely depends on mastering delta. They talk about something called the delta crisis.
Yes, the delta crisis.
Let's dive into the mechanics of that, because this is where the hardware metaphor becomes entirely literal.
To understand the delta crisis, we have to look at a relatively recent, really groundbreaking discovery in neuroscience, the glymphatic system.
Right.
It was detailed extensively by researchers like Macon Nadergaard around 2013. We always knew sleep was important, obviously, but we didn't know the exact mechanical plumbing of why.
So what exactly is happening during deep delta sleep?
When your brain enters that slow, massive delta rhythm, your actual brain cells, the neurons and glial cells, they physically shrink in size.
Wait, they physically shrink?
They reduce their volume by up to 60%.
They literally shrivel up.
Yes. And by shrinking, they create vast empty spaces between the cells.
Okay.
Once that space is created, cerebrospinal fluid rushes into the brain tissue. It acts like a high-pressure power washer, flushing through the brain and washing away all the toxic metabolic waste proteins.
Like amyloid beta.
Exactly. Those proteins build up as a byproduct of your active beta thinking during the day.
I love trying to visualize this. Imagine the waking brain is like a totally packed, really crowded nightclub.
Yeah.
As long as the party is raging, which is your beta brainwave state, the janitors can't possibly clean the floors. It's way too crowded.
They can't get in.
Right. Delta sleep is when the bouncer finally turns on the bright lights and kicks everyone out. The guests leave, the room physically empties out, and only then can the janitors come in with the hoses and power wash the sticky floors.
That is exactly how the glymphatic system works. But here is the problem, and this is what the text means by a delta crisis. What happens when the bouncer fails to kick everyone out? What happens when delta is fractured?
The sources detail how chronic stress, environmental noise, or even certain neurodivergent profiles, like the autism or bipolar spectrums, result in what they call microscopic awakenings.
Right.
The brain never fully drops into the basement of delta.
The culprit here is often a tiny structure deep in the brainstem called the locus coeruleus.
The locus coeruleus.
It's basically the brain's smoke alarm. Its job is to wake you up if there is danger. But in a state of chronic stress, or if your nervous system is dysregulated by poor diet or noise, this smoke alarm gets broken. It gets stuck in the on position.
So even when you are asleep, the broken smoke alarm keeps injecting fast, alert beta waves into your brain in the middle of the night.
Precisely. And because the brain is suddenly jolted with beta waves, the cells stop shrinking. The bouncer lets people back into the club. Yeah. Without continuous, uninterrupted delta waves, the spaces close up, the cerebrospinal fluid cannot wash through, and the toxic metabolic waste remains trapped in the brain tissue.
The power wash never happens.
And the consequences are catastrophic for your portability. Day after day, the toxic waste builds up. Your biogesial loses its geometric coherence.
The hardware literally gets gunked up with proteins.
Exactly. You wake up exhausted, your alpha lock is broken, and you become hypersensitive. You lose the ability to filter out the noise of the subway, and every little sound or stressor feels like a physical assault.
So how do we fix a broken smoke alarm in the brainstem? The text offers a very specific practical application. They refer to it as Phase C, which stands for separation and integration.
Right, Phase C.
And it involves a highly deliberate water ritual.
The sources argue that you cannot simply turn off a human like pulling the cord out of the wall.
You can't just power down.
Right. You cannot expect a stressed brain to instantly drop into delta just by lying in bed and closing your eyes. You need a transition phase. They strongly advocate for a physical ritual to close the day, specifically highlighting the use of a warm shower.
But this isn't just about hygiene, right? We aren't just washing off dirt. There is a neurobiological mechanism at play here.
Exactly. It is about intentionally triggering the autonomic nervous system. When you step into a warm shower, the physical sensation of the water on the skin, combined with the enclosed acoustic space of the shower stall, creates an environment of sensory isolation.
Okay.
If you pair that with deliberate, prolonged exhalations, you actively stimulate the vagus nerve.
And the vagus nerve is the master switch for relaxation.
Yes. Stimulating the vagus nerve forces a biological shift. It pulls the body out of the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight-or-flight, high-alert beta state, and forces it into the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest mode.
It's a conscious override.
It is a conscious physical decision to drop the day's stress, to literally and metaphorically wash off the accumulated parasitic frequencies. You are signaling to the locus coeruleus that the environment is safe, turning off the smoke alarm so the body can finally enter the deep delta state.
You are systematically closing all the tabs on your browser so the computer can actually run its overnight updates.
Perfect analogy, yes.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's zoom out. We have the acoustic input, which is rapidly rewriting the code via the ear and the fascia. We have the sleep integration, which power washes the hardware and saves the geometry.
Right.
But none of this matters. None of it functions if the physical hardware has no electrical power.
Which brings us to the third and final pathway of portability: biochemistry, metabolism, and the physical substrate of the signal.
Food.
Food, exactly. If sound is the software and sleep is the hard drive maintenance, nutrition is the electricity from the wall socket.
And the sources go incredibly deep into cellular electricity here. They don't talk about calories or macros. They talk about voltage.
Which is such a shift in perspective.
It really is. And they start with a very specific, crucial number, the negative 70 millivolt resting potential. I want to spend some time on this because understanding this single number changes how you view your entire nervous system.
It is the foundation of neuroscience. Every single neuron in your brain acts like a tiny battery.
Okay.
When a healthy neuron is at rest, when it is just sitting there waiting for a signal to come through, it maintains an electrical charge of exactly negative 70 millivolts across its cellular membrane. The inside of the cell is more negative than the outside.
So that negative 70 millivolts is the baseline. It's the quiet state. Now, for that neuron to actually fire, to send a thought, to move a muscle, to feel an emotion, it needs to be stimulated by an input, right?
Yes.
And that input has to push the voltage up to a certain threshold to trigger the spark.
Exactly. That firing threshold is usually around negative 55 millivolts. So in a healthy system, the neuron is sitting comfortably down at negative 70, an input comes in, it raises the voltage past negative 55, the neuron fires its electrical signal, and then it immediately resets back down to the negative 70 baseline.
But the text highlights a massive point of failure here. What happens if the body is inflamed?
Inflammation changes everything.
They explicitly call out the danger of histamines, the chemicals your immune system releases when dealing with food allergens, lactose intolerance, or highly processed inflammatory foods.
Right. When your gut is inflamed, it triggers systemic inflammation. And that inflammation directly attacks the microscopic engines on the surface of your neurons called the sodium-potassium ATPase pumps.
And what do those pumps do?
These pumps are literally what shovel positive ions in and out of the cell to maintain that perfect negative 70 millivolt baseline.
So if you eat something that inflames your system, those pumps start to fail. They run out of energy.
And when the pumps fail, that baseline electrical charge starts to drift. Instead of being firmly anchored down at negative 70 millivolts, the resting potential drifts upward, erratically.
It gets closer to the threshold.
Exactly. It creeps up to negative 65, negative 60, maybe even hovering right at negative 56 millivolts.
It's like a hair trigger on a loaded spring.
Yeah.
If your baseline is already hovering right at the firing threshold, the tiniest little input will set it off.
Precisely. A totally normal, non-threatening sound, a minor stressor at work, or even just a bright light in the room pushes the neuron past the threshold.
And it misfires.
The neuron misfires. It fires a massive alarm signal when it really shouldn't.
And this leads to massive sensory overload. This is the physiological root of nervous exhaustion.
Yes.
When you feel burned out or overstimulated, it's not a moral failing or a lack of willpower. Your brain is literally firing endless alarm signals over nothing because its electrical baseline has been compromised by the inflammation from what you ate.
It is a pure hardware issue. So the obvious question becomes, well, how do we power those sodium-potassium pumps properly? How do we anchor the baseline?
Right.
The text points directly to what they call a 34 ATP turbine.
ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is the fundamental energy currency of all biological life. It's the fuel.
Right.
The sources detail the exact metabolic pathway here. We know that glucose from carbohydrates provides the initial raw fuel, but the text states that to get the maximum yield of energy, exactly 34 ATP molecules per cycle inside mitochondria, the body absolutely requires a specific mineral, magnesium.
Magnesium is the master key that turns the metabolic lock. Let's look at the chemistry of why that is.
Okay, let's do it.
An ATP molecule has 3 phosphate groups attached to it. Phosphates are highly negatively charged, and just like magnets, negative charges repel each other.
I want to push apart.
So this ATP molecule is under immense physical tension. It basically wants to explode apart.
It's a coiled spring of chemical energy.
Exactly. For your body to safely capture and use that energy to run those sodium-potassium pumps, the ATP needs to be stabilized. Magnesium is a positively charged ion.
Ah, so it balances it out?
It physically hugs the ATP molecule, neutralizing the negative repulsion. The magnesium ATP complex is what actually allows the energy to be unlocked safely.
That's incredible.
Without highly bioavailable magnesium from whole food sources like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, or dark leafy greens, the cellular turbine just stutters.
If you lack magnesium, the engine misfires. You can't produce the 34 ATP, your cellular pumps fail, your electrical charge drifts to the hair trigger threshold, and your portability crashes.
Yes.
The subway noise overwhelms you because your brain literally doesn't have the electrical power to maintain its alpha lock.
It is a direct chain of causality from the mineral content of your food to your ability to handle emotional stress.
It's all connected.
It really is. But the texts don't stop at chemistry, which is great. They bring in some brilliant insights about the physical architecture of food. They talk about texture and chronodynamics.
Let's talk about texture because I found this section really fascinating. Food isn't just about macronutrients like proteins, carbs, and fats. The physical shape of the food matters.
Yes, the sources highlight fibrous textures, specifically mentioning things like wild asparagus.
Wild asparagus, okay.
They argue that these dense fibrous structures do more than just provide bulk for digestion. They act as a literal electrostatic brush on the intestinal villi.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here on behalf of the listener. An electrostatic brush. It sounds a bit like pseudoscience. Like, how does a piece of chewed up celery carry an electrical charge into my gut?
It's a totally fair question, but it comes down to the physics of friction and the microbiome. Your intestinal lining is covered in millions of tiny, finger-like projections called villi.
Right, to absorb nutrients.
When you consume highly refined, mushy, processed foods, it leaves a stagnant, sticky residue on these villi, creating a barrier to absorption. But dense, insoluble fiber acts as a physical abrasive. As it moves through the digestive tract, the physical friction clears out that stagnation.
It physically scrubs it.
And more importantly, we don't actually digest that fiber ourselves. Our gut bacteria do.
Right, the microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in the colon.
When those specific bacteria ferment the complex fibers, they produce byproducts called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs.
Okay.
These SCFAs, like butyrate, are highly charged molecules. They are the true metabolic vectors of energy for the cells lining your colon. They alter the pH and the electrical charge of the gut environment, reducing inflammation and maintaining the integrity of the gut-brain axis.
Ah.
Research like the studies from Cryan and colleagues in 2019 showed definitively how these microbiome byproducts directly modulate brain function.
So the physical texture of the asparagus feeds the bacteria, which create the chemical fuel, which lowers the inflammation, which stabilizes the brain's voltage.
It's an incredibly intricate machine.
It really is.
Ugh.
And the sources point out that when you eat this, fuel matters just as much. They call it chronodynamics.
Chronodynamics is the intersection of digestion and the circadian rhythm. Your body is not a static machine. Its enzymatic production fluctuates throughout the day.
So timing is everything.
If you eat a massive, complex meal at the wrong time, say at 11:00 p.m., right when your brain is trying to drop into that critical delta sleep phase, you create a biological catastrophe.
Because the metabolic shockwave of processing that food physically clashes with the slow brainwave rhythms trying to initiate the glymphatic wash.
Exactly. Instead of the food harmonizing into useful ATP energy, the text states it turns into toxic free radicals. It becomes a destructive interference pattern.
You force the body to choose between digesting food and cleaning the brain.
And it can't do both effectively.
If we pull back and look at the big picture here, we are looking at a unified mechanical theory of biological maintenance.
A total operating system.
Yeah. Sound sets the rhythm and physically massages the tissues. Sleep clears the slate and power washes the hardware. And nutrition provides the exact electrical voltage required to keep the shields up. But as I was pouring through these texts, I kept noticing a recurring theme that crosses over between the chemistry of food and the physics of light.
Ah, yes.
How does a piece of sweet potato or a base frequency actually translate into an intention? How does it become a thought or a feeling of portability?
This is the moment where the sources push past standard biology and into the absolute cutting edge of quantum biophysics.
Okay, here we go.
They introduce a concept they call flumiergie.
Flumiergie. It's a French amalgamation of flux, light lumiere, and energy. Let's pause and really explore this because this is the true aha moment of the entire deep dive.
The fundamental premise here is a radical shift in how we view cellular communication. We are taught that cells communicate purely via chemistry.
Uh-huh.
A hormone locks into a receptor, like a key in a door.
Right, that's what we learned in school.
But that chemical process is actually too slow to account for the sheer speed of biological coordination in a human body. The texts highlight the reality that living cells continuously emit ultra-weak photon emissions, or UPEs.
Biophoton.
Biophoton.
We need to let that sink in for a second. Humans are literally glowing.
We are.
It is incredibly dim, way too dim for the naked eye to see. But scientific instruments can measure it. We are emitting physical particles of light.
We are emitting light, and this light is not random thermal glow. It is highly coherent, much like a laser.
Like a laser.
The texts argue that this biophotonic light is the actual physical bridge between an intention like a thought, an emotion, a state of coherence, and the physical cellular structure.
So the light is the primary signal. The biophotons transmit the information, and that light tells the biochemistry what to do.
Right.
The chemistry is just the slow, mechanical consequence of the fast light signal.
That is the theory. But it raises a huge mechanical question. How does this light, this vast amount of vibrational and energetic data, travel so efficiently and instantly throughout a massive physical body?
That brings us back to the most abundant substance in the body, water. We touched on this with the cymatics of sound, but the sources are very specific about the state of this water. This isn't just the tap water sloshing around in a glass.
No, the water inside our cells, the water that interacts with our proteins, our DNA, and our cell membranes, structures itself into a fourth phase.
A fourth phase.
It's often referred to in biophysics as exclusion zone water, or EZ water. Its chemical formula actually shifts. It isn't H2O anymore. It organizes into a hexagonal lattice that is closer to H3O2-.
So it becomes a liquid crystal.
Exactly. It takes on the properties of a crystal while remaining fluid, and because it is a highly structured crystal, this intracellular water acts as a room temperature superconductor.
Wow.
It utilizes a phenomenon known in physical chemistry as the Grothus mechanism.
Okay, we need to explain the Grothus mechanism because this is the secret fiber optic network of the body. How does it work?
Imagine you have a long line of people in a bucket brigade trying to put out a fire.
Okay, I can picture that.
If you use standard diffusion, the normal way things move in water, one person has to carry a single bucket of water all the way from the well to the fire. It is slow and highly inefficient.
That's how we normally think of molecules moving in the body, just slowly floating from point A to point B.
But the Grothus mechanism is different. In structured liquid crystal water, the water molecules are perfectly lined up, holding hands via hydrogen bonds.
Okay.
When a proton, which is a positive charge of information, enters one end of the line, it doesn't travel all the way to the end. Instead, it bumps the next proton, which bumps the next, in a rapid-fire chain reaction down the line.
Oh, like Newton's cradle, those metal balls clicking on a desk.
Exactly like that. The charge is transmitted almost instantaneously across massive biological distances.
So the biophotons provide the data signal, and the liquid crystal water provides the high-speed fiber optic network to distribute that signal instantly to every single cell in your body.
Yes, and this is why the texts are so obsessed with what they call the index of humidiance. It's not just about drinking 8 glasses of water a day.
Right, it's about the structure.
If your cellular water loses its crystalline structure, which happens when you are exposed to toxic acoustic noise, when you are chronically stressed, or when you lack the trace minerals and electrolytes to hold the lattice together, your biosoftware literally loses its conductivity.
The fiber optic cable is severed.
The chain is broken, the Grothus mechanism fails, your thoughts become sluggish, your emotional regulation collapses, your cells cannot communicate, and your portability disintegrates.
You become a victim of the subway noise because your internal network is offline.
That's exactly it.
Okay, this has been an incredible journey into the micromechanics of our hardware. We have all the pieces on the board, we understand the acoustic rapid rewrite, the architectural power wash of deep delta sleep, the atomic turbine of magnesium and ATP, and the fiber optic network of light and liquid crystal water.
It's a lot, but it connects beautifully.
It does. But the ultimate goal of the text isn't just knowledge, right? It's operation. How do you, the listener, sitting in your car or walking your dog right now, actually operate this machine? How do we achieve what the text calls conference?
Comparence is an amalgamation of confluence and coherence. It is the ultimate state of flow.
Confluence and coherence.
Right. It is when your base resonance is stable, strong, and highly conductive. To achieve this, the operator's guide at the end of the text details 3 strict daily levers of modulation.
These are the controls on your dashboard.
Yes, the controls.
Let's break down the 3 levers so people can apply this today. Lever number 1, matter. This is the chemical regulation of the hardware.
The very first step of matter is eviction. You cannot tune an engine while pouring sand into the gas tank.
Fair point.
You must evict inflammatory foods from your system to protect the intestinal mucosa and prevent those histamine floods that ruin your cellular voltage.
So cut the junk out first.
Once the inflammation is gone, you fuel the 34 ATP turbine arm. The text suggests utilizing low glycemic indexed carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, quinoa, or buckwheat, and heavily combining them with bioavailable magnesium.
Okay.
You are intentionally creating a stable, slow-burn energy source to keep those sodium-potassium pumps running at a perfect -70 millivolts.
Lever number 2, space. This is about electrical insulation.
Think of your nervous system as a vast, complex network of electrical wires. If those wires are bare and exposed, the electricity leaks out, the signal slows down, and they short-circuit when they touch.
Makes sense.
To prevent this, the wires in your brain are wrapped in an insulating layer called the myelin sheath.
And myelin is essentially made of fat, right?
Yes, it is. To build, protect, and thicken that myelin insulation, the sources dictate the strategic consumption of high-quality lipids and fats. They suggest things like hemp seeds, walnuts, or soft-boiled eggs to provide the exact fatty acids the brain needs.
To thicken the insulation.
The thicker and healthier your myelin sheaths are, the faster and clearer your biophotonic and electrical thoughts can travel. You are physically upgrading the bandwidth of your internal network.
And finally, lever number 3, time. This is circadian synchronization.
Time is about respecting the strict alternation between biological phases. The texts call them pulsation and isolation.
Pulsation and isolation.
Pulsation is your active, creative, focused beta phase. You are emitting energy. Isolation is your deep, protective delta sleep phase. You are repairing and power washing.
Right.
The crucial warning here is that carrying a sleep debt instantly increases the electrical resistance, the physical impedance of your body.
High impedance means the electrical signal distorts. It takes more energy to push a thought through a tired brain.
Exactly. You must aggressively protect the rhythm of charge and discharge. You must enforce that separation phase seed, the vagus nerve water ritual, to ensure you actually transition from pulsation to isolation.
And what I find so deeply empowering about this entire framework is the feedback loop it creates. The sources call it the echo response.
I love that term.
This isn't some rigid dogmatic set of rules where you fail if you eat a piece of cake. It's a cybernetic system. The body is constantly giving you real-time data on your dashboard.
Yes. If you feel a sudden wave of cognitive dissonance, if you experience brain fog at 3:00 p.m., or if you feel a spike of profound exhaustion after a social interaction, the text urges you to stop viewing that as a personal moral failure.
It's not a character flaw.
It is not a lack of character. It is simply a biological echo response. It is an engine light on your dashboard signaling that your frequency is distorting. And one of those 3 levers, matter, space, or time, needs an immediate mechanical adjustment.
It completely removes the guilt from exhaustion. It frames your mood as an engineering problem. Am I anxious? Or is my resting potential drifting because I lack magnesium?
Right.
Am I depressed? Or did my glymphatic system fail to wash out the neurotoxins last night? Check your fuel, check your insulation, check your sleep cycles. Adjust the levers until the signal clears up and your portability returns.
It literally gives you the manual to your own machinery.
We've really unraveled the depths of the BioG Shield today. We've seen how the acoustic shock waves of sound literally pump our cellular water, how the architectural power wash of deep delta sleep prevents our hardware from crashing, and how the exact atomic resonance of our food dictates the electrical voltage of our consciousness.
It is a massive amount of information to synthesize.
It is, but once you see the mechanics, it completely changes how you interact with the physical world.
It absolutely does. And before we close, I want to leave you with one final profound concept buried in the back of these texts.
Oh, please do.
The law of entrainment.
Let's hear it.
Entrainment is a phenomenon in physics. It dictates that when 2 oscillating systems, 2 vibrating entities, are brought into close proximity, they will eventually synchronize.
Okay.
But it is not a compromise. The physics mandate that the system with the stronger, more stable frequency will naturally force the weaker, unstable frequencies around it to align to its rhythm.
A stronger tuning fork forces the smaller ones to match its hum.
Exactly. It is an unavoidable physical law.
So think about what that means for you today. If you use the acoustics of your environment, the power wash of your sleep, and the precise voltage of your nutrition to perfectly tune your own bass resonance, well, you aren't just protecting your own biosoftware.
Not at all.
You cease to be a passive victim of the subway noise. You become the tuning fork for the entire room.
Yes.
By simply existing in a state of high coherence, by protecting your portability, the physics of entrainment dictate that you will naturally force the chaotic, stressed environments around you to harmonize to your rhythm.
That's the ultimate takeaway.
The final question you have to ask yourself is this: whose frequency are you passively tuning to today, and who is being forced to tune to yours? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take control of your levers, keep questioning the invisible mechanics of the world around you, and we'll catch you next time.